I'm very blessed to have been born and raised in Philadelphia, a graduate of Hellenic College, Holy Cross, Hellenic College 84, 87 from Holy Cross. Met my wonderful wife, Vivianthi Ni Paporis, now Vivanos, for 35 years. She's a graduate of Hellenic College in 1985. And we're blessed with 7 children and 9 grandchildren, 8 granddaughters in a row, and 1 grandson that just came to us recently. I am serving presently, albeit in a unique capacity now, the All Saints Parish in the metropolis of Pittsburgh, in the center of the universe, known as Canonsburg, Pennsylvania. It's not the center of the Commonwealth. It literally, for me, is the center of the universe, because the excitement and joy of serving Christ for this, I'm in my 32nd year in the parish. July of this year will bring me at the end of 32 years, God willing, if I'm still on this wonderful planet with all of you. And I was ordained to the priesthood in 1987. So you can see that outside of spending a year with your dear Papu, who was a tremendous teacher in so many ways, and the best compliment I can give him was, and God rest his soul with Presbytera Mary, was a number of years after not being his assistant, I saw him in a clergy lady. I walked right up to him and I said, Vascale. And he goes, oh, Vascalos. And he smiled at me. And I think we both understood that I think I learned all the lessons I needed to years later. Axios to psychitu. So, I'm very thankful to be starting somewhat maybe a para ministry or a new ministry, and that's Soul Food for Life. December 1st, I went into long-term disability because on May 21st, I was surprised and shocked to find out that I have terminal cancer. It's called mesothelioma. The doctors looked at me and they were shocked. They said, did you work in a steel mill, coal mine? Did you work in a shipyard? And I said, no, not at all. And then they, ascertained that it's an unbelievable thing. They usually don't see people in their 50s with this disease, and 57 at the time. And it was a shock to my wife and I, and 6 months of really strong chemo produced a significant shrinkage of the tumor, which is over the left pleura, just around the left lung, and on my diaphragm. That's the good news. And then I had 2 months of no therapy, and that's good news. But at the end of December, after Christmas, I had a hard time breathing. And truth be told, that the tumor has started to grow again. And so I'm starting immunotherapy next week, and whatever God blesses. So you asked me about Soul Food for Life. And, with COVID happening in the early 2020, the attendance was dropping for a number of reasons. And what I used to do is send practically daily an email to my parishioners called Soul Food. And I would take patristic clips and I would send it to them, just phrases and thoughts, maybe a couple paragraphs. Well, when I lost the intimacy of seeing them and they seeing and hearing me, even though our services are live on the internet, I started doing about a 2-3 minute video clip and sending it to them. And then one day I decided to put it on social media. And that really surprised me because a number of people were very supportive. And I started doing a couple more, and lo and behold, a dear spiritual family member who is very gifted in putting websites together said to me, we have to take these clips and put it on a web page. And before you know it, soulfoodforlife.com has been born.
So, Father, you talked in the beginning about obviously COVID happened right back in March. Your diagnosis in June, and then these videos really started on social media and YouTube. I know you were producing them, but you really started sharing them back in early November. What do you think was the challenge during COVID? Um, Not only how did these videos serve not only your pastoral need, but how did they also serve and fill a void personally that you were missing of not just being in a COVID parish, but also having been really out of the parish serving for since June, really, right?
Right. Actually, since May 21st, I didn't go back for about 6 months, and until I showed up for the first time in the parish because my health wasn't that strong to do so. You bring up, a good question, and so I'll tell you a quick story. Married 35 years, my wife has had a number of frustrations with me, and one of them is that I don't have a hobby, or at least she thinks I didn't have a hobby. And she kept saying, "Just do gardening. You have to do something besides the priesthood, which you're decently good at. Gardening, something, woodworking." And for years and years and years, I tried, but nothing came natural. And really, one day, and it was very recent, probably sometime in the end of 2019, I said to her, "Leonthi, I found my hobby." And she was like, "Oh my goodness, thank God. What is it?" And I said, "People, people. Um, I like being people. I was born and raised an only child. So my father died when I was young, just before I turned into a teenager. They said when I was a little stinker that I was pretty theatric and would gain people's attention. And so I guess that part of me just stuck as a blessing. And I enjoy sitting with people, hearing their life story, uh, walking with them. And so I really feel like I have a double liturgy. One is at the Holy of Holy with them, and the other one is in my office with them, or on the phone. So it's this continuing ministry. So Soul Food for Life and those little videos met a need for, I think, obviously a part of my own personality, but also, to be fair, I think it's meeting a need in the community, both inside, if I may say, the church, and outside, because we desperately need some strong leadership during this time pastorally, and I'm praying I'm offering something along with the other fathers and hierarchs.
So I was watching some of the videos. I watched them last week and I was breezing through them again this morning. Attitude of gratitude, heavenly deposits, thanksgiving, let go, let God, community living, best gift, right? These are great topics. So how do you decide what you're going to talk about? How do you decide what message you're going to give the faithful in these videos?
So in the world, I am a tremendous embarrassment because I don't practice. I don't sit there in an office and reading tons of books or whatnot. I constantly try to keep my heart somehow in Christ, whether it's the Jesus prayer or just being open to Him. And honest to goodness, it's like a zap. It hits me, and then I just get up and I start doing a video. Most recently, the last one, I think it was the end of the year message. I was sitting in the living room. I'm watching one of my favorites, Stephen A. Smith, his show, First Take. And then all of a sudden I said to the auntie, my wife, I said, "The auntie," and she comes out of the kitchen. She says, "What?" I said, "I was just struck and I have to go make a video." And she says, "Okay." And then she stops me. She goes, "Could you please put your robe on? Because you're still a priest." And I said, "Yeah, yeah, I was planning to." And then I just spoke from the heart. Um, the church fathers speak a lot about moving into here. Even when we do the Jesus prayer, we're supposed to be turned toward the heart. And that's such a sacred image. And it's not that the mind is bad. I mean, look at all the icons we have. Is there a halo over the whole body? No, it's over here, over what we would understand the nous. But it's not because they're all graduates of the University of Athens back then, or some major academic university. It's just that because they've become enlightened, and so that's what we need to be. And I'm begging the Lord to allow His church to step up during these days, during this COVID epidemic, because I'm thinking in humility, maybe we're missing the mark a little bit. The world needs leadership, but it doesn't come from the White House, the Brown House. It comes from His house, and I know that we can do even better than what we're doing.
Father, so I was watching your the video of when you came back for the first Sunday, when you came back to the parish, and you were sitting on the solea talking to them, and you said that you had been working on focusing on life even after death, not to die, but to live, right? And you talked a little bit about death, and I think that many of us, over the course of the past 9 months, especially, I'll say here in New York, we have encountered more death than any of us have ever really in our lifetimes seen, right? I tell people all the time, the anecdote that I did more funerals in April and in March, April, and May than I did all of last year, right? It was just, we're experiencing this death on such an epic level right now because of COVID and all, and everything that's happening. Death is a real part of your story, and I think it's an underlying part of these Soul Food for Life videos. How does the thought of somebody living with a terminal diagnosis, how does that affect how you look at life and how you minister to your flock?
Great question. I mean, there's really maybe two ways of dealing with this. Oh, sorry, I lost you. I'm sorry. There's really two ways of dealing with this: run and hide, or step up. And from what I have read, the early Christians, they many of them that we read, they were fearless. Death was our worst enemy, and it has been conquered. Christ has conquered death by death. We have stories like the Archdeacon Saint Lavrendio, Saint Lawrence, right, who is placed on the spit, and while his skin is burning, he's laughing. And they're asking him, "Why are you laughing?" He goes, "Because this side is done. Turn me over." Now we may say, "Oh, but they're like 1 in a million stories, Father." Why does it have to be 1 in a million stories? I mean, who told us that we're supposed to be here for 30, 50, 80 years? And I know the prayers say, I've read them, and how many weddings. May you see your children's children like vigorous young olive trees round about your table. And that is a blessing. But in some cases, it doesn't happen. So what do we say? They were cursed? Yes, there is tragedy. Yes, there is suffering. But Jesus is the remedy. And I'm scratching my head because, look, I'm not perfect. I have down days, especially when you take certain medication, you really have down days. But we can't allow the mind to take over and the cares of this life. We go to church and we listen to our choirs, whether they're the beautiful Western choir music or Byzantine music. And what hymn is being chanted? The Hieroviko, the cherubic hymn. What's one of the lines, if we know the hymn, right? Let us set aside all the cares of this life, that we may receive the King of all. That's not just for that moment. Like, okay, don't think about the 1:00 football game or what you're going to have for brunch. So the priest can walk out of the sanctuary and do a little two-step back in. No, this is literally put everything aside and focus on Him. And so if you allow me just to take another step, I'm going to say this thought. People have asked me, how do we strengthen our marriage? How do we become good parents? And how do we put up with a difficult work situation? And I have shared with them humbly that it's all about who you love. And I said, so who do you love the most? And vast majority would say, well, my spouse, my children especially, or my grandchildren. I said, that's really good, but that's idol worship. And they look at me with these eyes. What do you mean idol worship? I said, well, I didn't say you shouldn't love them, but it's God. I, it, who knew me in the womb before I was created, before I even knew anything about life outside of the womb. So really think about it. What a joy it would be if we were so much in love with God, so filled with thanksgiving and that real intimacy. Therefore, every other relationship should fall into place. I mean, look what's going on in society right now. We're beating each other up. I'm a mule, I'm an elephant, I'm this, I'm that. No one's saying the word Christian. And by the way, Christians aren't wimps. They're not. Some were soldiers, some were monks, some were housewives, some were kids. But they all had one thing in common: they loved perfectly the one who created them. And just like the song says, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. And if I remember my scripture correctly, the epistle of St. John says, Theos agape esti. God is love. If that's not the first love, then don't waste your time. Stick around as long as you can, and they'll put us in the ground and hope for the best.
Father George, your videos have been shared hundreds, if not thousands of times on social media. And like you said, they were, posted to social media, YouTube. You have a website now. You've done several interviews over the past couple of days. Your message, I think that it is valid to say that Canonsburg is now the center of the universe because everyone is most definitely paying attention. But what has the feedback been, first of all, to the Soul Food for Life videos? And then what is your reaction to the feedback?
So I'm giggling because really, I don't necessarily see myself in a role that some people are putting me in by saying, this is what we've been waiting for. Something short, something sweet, something tangible. Nothing, not this long diatribe of 20, 30, 40 minutes, just something we can grab onto, maybe microwavable, if you will. It's been accepted real well. How has it affected me? It's just me. I'm a weird bird to begin with. So it hasn't necessarily changed me. I appreciate opportunities of like this one here to share the joy and share the good news. And I really think we should be doing more of it. I want an Orthodox church. I want, 5 per town, 5 per city minimum. We should have our own TV stations and radio stations. We got great podcasts. The Archdiocese is producing wonderful things. Pan Orthodoxy is doing wonderful things, but it's not enough. We should be, if we can, everywhere, but in short dosages, because people's attention span is short, to be fair. What do they tell us in seminary? If you can't reach them in 8 minutes or 10 minutes, 20 and more isn't going to do it. And that's right. Our worship service speaks for itself. And I believe in my heart that it's from that dynamic worship experience that we can become what we need to be. It's not an intellectualism. I don't say don't read books. My goodness, of course, because reading the scriptures, number one, reading the church fathers, etc., is very important, very beneficial. In addition to that, though, you just can't send your wife a note or your husband a note and say, I love you, without holding their hand, without hugging them. And that's what worship is. It's allowing ourselves to be held by God and to reach out like a child and say, pardon me, take me. And it's a wonderful sacred, spiritual bond that takes place. And from that, wow, I mean, the church doors, they should poof, explode. There should be no walls. You know, I say that I serve a parish with no walls. And my people understand what I'm saying, meaning that, yeah, we have physical walls, we have icons on the walls, they're all beautiful, but we're not blocking ourselves in. And it's not just from social ministry that we go out and touch people's lives, which is important. Don't get me wrong, but it's us. It's us. You know, that saying where people, you know, say you might be the only Bible that someone reads. Right. You may be the only saint that someone actually comes up with. So it's making a choice. And it's hard, but it's not hard. It's not. Just do it. You know, Nike, just do it. And it happens.
Father, what's your future plans now? You're expanding the Soul Food for Life empire. You've got your website now, a pretty social media presence. I mean, what's the plan for the future?
I have no idea. I listen. I could be here 5 more minutes. This might be the last time I'm here, and I've had 2 really not good days, yesterday and the day before, to be quite honest. I don't know. I have no idea. To say I want to serve seems like an act. I just want to express the love and thanksgiving that the Lord has placed in my heart. So whatever that means, you know, I'm open if I'm here 10 minutes or 10 years.
Lastly, Father, what's your message today for the let me riff for a second. You have you have impacted thousands of lives around the country, right? Whether it's your involvement in the national ministries and the clergy brotherhood, your presence on social media, your very active ministry at the camping ministries, both in the metropolis of Pittsburgh, outside, and Ionian Village, of course, back in 2013 when we were together. So it is without a doubt that you have impacted the lives of thousands of people. And we hope that, you know, this video will be shared not only on the Orthodox Observer social media, but probably most likely by His Eminence on his personal social media as well. He, as you know, this was his idea to do this. If you have an opportunity here to reach many thousands of people, what would your very simple message to them be?
Mi for vous, fear not. Don't be afraid. Nothing saves us, nothing protects us but the love of God. And if that means sacrifice, then let's be ready for it. People are telling us that, you know, with the probable change of political leadership, get ready because things are going to get bad. Things were bad already for a long time. We've just been a little too chubby to pay attention because we've been taking care of ourselves too much. And we've let certain things go by the wayside. First and foremost, my unworthiness. So don't be afraid. Wherever you go, let love, which is God, conquer. And if something happens to you, don't be mad, don't be sad, but say, may this be blessed, Lord. May this be blessed. And thank you for loving me this much, that this is the best for me. We do that. Can you imagine what warriors God will have upon this earth to stand like a wall against the powers of darkness? And I mean, in most cases, people just they lack a leader. They lack the confidence, and they look at us as the ecclesia, and they ask us questions. And if we're afraid, what message are we giving them? Don't be afraid.